A canine dog stops at an old tree stump and discovers human remains buried beneath it. The forest was silent when canine hunter froze mid-step, his claws digging into the damp soil as if the earth itself had whispered a warning. His ears shot forward, his breath stopped, and a low, trembling growl rolled from his chest. Officer Reed tightened the leash, confused, but Hunter wouldn't move. Instead, the dog stared at a decaying tree stump a few feet away, stared with a fear Reed had never seen in him before. The wind shifted. Hunter lunged, snarling, pawing frantically at the rotten wood, sending splinters flying. Something beneath the stump made him recoil, hackles rising, pupils shrinking to pinpoints. Reed stepped closer, heart pounding, just as Hunter let out a howl so raw, so desperate, it echoed through the entire forest. And in that moment, Reed understood whatever lay beneath that stump was never meant to be found. Before we dig deeper into what Hunter uncovered beneath that stump, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Your stories help these moments travel farther than the forest ever could. The forest of black pines stood at the edge of Maple Ridge, a small town where everyone knew everyone, and secrets rarely survived past sunrise. But the woods were different, dense, old, untouched by the town's warmth. Mist often lingered between the twisted trunks, and even the bravest hikers avoided the deeper trails. That morning, a pale sun filtered through the branches, spreading a thin, cold light across the forest floor. Dew clung to every blade of grass. The air tasted of moss and something older, something forgotten. Officer Daniel Reed walked the trail with Hunter, his seasoned canine partner. The two had been together for 4 years, long enough for Reed to trust Hunter's instincts more than any human's. Hunter had found missing children buried beneath snowstorms, tracked fugitives through burning wreckage, and sensed danger long before Reed ever saw it. Reed often joked that Hunter had a soul stitched together from lightning and intuition. But beneath the jokes was a truth no one denied. Hunter saw the world differently. He felt what others overlooked. Reed himself was quiet, carrying a weight no badge could shield. His younger brother, Lucas, had vanished from Maple Ridge 20 years ago. No leads, no suspects, just a cold case and a lifetime of unanswered questions. Reed never spoke about it, but the forest always reminded him of the day Lucas disappeared. The creaking branches, the shifting shadows, it all echoed with memories he tried to bury. Today's assignment was routine, a call from a group of hikers who reported hearing strange sounds near the western ridge. The department brushed it off as a deer or a coyote, but Reed volunteered to check anyway. Hunter seemed eager when Reed grabbed the leash, pulling forward with quick, determined steps. As they trekked deeper, the usual forest sounds, chirping insects, rustling leaves, faded into an eerie hush. Reed noticed how even the wind seemed to hesitate, as if unsure it should pass through. While Reed scanned the surroundings, Hunter paused several times, sniffing the air with sharp focus. His muscles tightened, his eyes narrowed. Reed felt that familiar prickle on the back of his neck. Hunter was sensing something. Not fear, not danger, something else. A memory, maybe. A scent carried across time. The forest grew denser, older. Fallen branches twisted like skeletal hands. The trail narrowed until it was barely a footpath. Hunter moved slower now, each step deliberate, his paws pressing into the damp earth with care. Reed watched him, trying to decipher the shift in behavior. Hunter rarely hesitated unless something was wrong, truly wrong. Ahead, sunlight broke through the canopy, illuminating a small clearing. In the center of it was an old stump, rotted and hollowed by years of storms. Reed had passed dozens of stumps like it over the years, but something about this one felt off. It sat too still, too isolated, as though the forest had grown around it with intention. Hunter froze at its edge, chest rising and falling in short bursts. Reed tightened his grip on the leash, whispering, "Easy, boy, what do you see?" But Hunter wasn't seeing, he was remembering. Dogs held scents the way people held stories, and something in that stump carried a story older than the moss that coated it. Reed crouched beside Hunter, running a hand down his fur. The dog's muscles quivered beneath his palm. His tail was rigid, his ears locked on the stump as if it were breathing. The air around them grew cold. A soft breeze pushed against Reed's back, carrying with it the faint smell of earth freshly disturbed, though the ground looked untouched. As Reed studied the stump, a familiar ache tightened in his chest, a feeling he hadn't let himself feel in years. Something about this place gnawed at him, whispering of endings and unanswered questions. For the first time in the morning, Reed felt Hunter's fear settle into his own bones. There was something beneath that stump. Something that had waited too long to be found. Hunter's body shifted from tension to something deeper, an instinctive stillness that Reed had only seen a handful of times in their years together. The dog lowered his head, nostrils flaring as he inhaled the air around the stump in slow, deliberate breaths. His tail stiffened, not raised in aggression, but locked in alertness. A faint rumble echoed from his chest, not loud enough to be a warning, but sharp enough to send a chill down Reed's spine. Hunter stepped forward with the precision of a predator tracking prey. His paws pressed lightly into the soil, spreading his weight so evenly that not a twig snapped beneath him. Reed recognized this posture. It was the same instinct Hunter had shown right before finding a missing girl buried under a collapsed cabin. The same eerie silence that had preceded uncovering a fugitive hiding in a drainage pipe. This was not curiosity. This was certainty. The dog circled the stump once, then twice, each rotation tighter than the last. His ears rotated independently, scanning for a sound that Reed couldn't hear. His breathing changed again, shifting into sharp, fast exhales. Reed knelt beside him, whispering, "Talk to me, Hunter." But Hunter didn't look back. He kept his gaze fixed on the stump, as if expecting it to move. Reed reached out and touched the wood. It was cold, colder than it should have been after a morning of sunlight. The bark had softened with age, peeling at the edges like old parchment. But the stump itself held a stillness that didn't feel natural, like the forest was holding its breath. Suddenly, Hunter jerked backward, then lunged again, claws raking the outer ring of the stump. Bits of rotted wood crumbled away, exposing darker soil underneath. The moment his claws touched that soil, Hunter recoiled with a sharp whine. His back arched. His hackles rose, forming a rigid line down his spine. Reed froze. He had seen Hunter react to explosives, weapons, even human blood before, but never like this. This wasn't fear. It wasn't aggression. It was grief. A deep, trembling sorrow that radiated from him in waves. Hunter pressed his nose against the soil again, inhaled, and let out a sound that made Reed's heart stutter, a broken howl. Low and raw, as if something buried there carried the weight of a memory Hunter could not bear. Reed reached for the leash, but Hunter yanked it free from his grip, stepping closer to the stump with slow, mournful precision. He pawed again, softer this time, as if trying to uncover something fragile. Each movement grew heavier, as though he carried the burden of whatever lay beneath. Then Reed noticed something else. Hunter's tail had lowered completely, tucked slightly inward, the posture of a dog sensing death. His pupils dilated, swallowing the amber tones of his eyes. His breathing became frantic. He turned back to Reed with a look Reed had only ever seen once, the night they found a child too late. Reed swallowed hard. "Is it human?" he whispered. Hunter didn't bark, didn't growl. Instead, he pressed his forehead against the stump. A gesture Reed had never seen him make. A gesture that felt like a plea, a recognition, a mourning. The forest responded with silence. A sudden gust of wind rattled the branches overhead. Leaves spiraled down, catching in Hunter's fur. The dog didn't flinch. His entire focus remained locked on the earth beneath the stump, where his instincts screamed of something buried, something cold, something lost, something that had waited years for him to find. Reed felt the hairs rise on his arms. Whatever was buried here, Hunter wasn't just detecting it, he was connected to it. And that terrified Reed more than anything else. Reed rose slowly, feeling the cold settle deeper into his bones as Hunter pressed closer to the stump. The dog's breaths came in sharp bursts, each inhale sounding like he was dragging memories from the soil itself. Reed tightened the leash, but Hunter resisted, not with force, but with a quiet, heartbreaking determination. Something beneath that stump had awakened a part of him. Reed had never seen an old, instinctive sorrow that didn't belong to any living scent. The forest around them shifted. What moments ago had been stillness now pulsed with unease. A crow cawed in the distance, its wings beating hard as it took off into the sky. The wind scraped through branches like whispers being pulled from every direction. Reed scanned the tree line, suddenly aware of how alone they were out here. No hikers. No voices. Only the rhythmic scratching of Hunter's claws and the soft crumble of decayed wood falling away. "Hunter," Reed murmured, leaning down. "You need to give me something. Anything." But Hunter ignored him. The dog lowered his snout again, pressing into the dirt until soil stuck to his whiskers. He inhaled deeply, then froze. A shiver rippled through him. He took 3 slow steps backward, tail tucked, ears flattening not in submission but in dread. Reed's pulse quickened. "Is it a body?" he whispered to himself, though he already knew the answer. Hunter only reacted this way to old remains, long forgotten, carrying the scent of time and tragedy. A gust of wind swept across the clearing, stirring up the leaves at their feet. Reed turned, scanning the forest edges. There was a weight in the air now, a heaviness pressing down on his shoulders. He thought of the missing hikers reported last year, of the campers who vanished decades ago, of the dozens of cold cases that haunted the region. Maple Ridge was small, but the forest around it was vast, ancient, and capable of swallowing secrets whole. Hunter gave a sudden bark, sharp, urgent, cracking through the silence like a warning shot. Reed jerked his attention back to the stump. The dog stood rigid, posture locked into a defensive stance. His stare had shifted. He was no longer looking at the base of the stump, but beneath it, as though he sensed something moving under the soil, something stirring. Reed crouched and brushed aside a handful of loose dirt. It crumbled easily, far too easily for untouched ground. Someone had disturbed this area before. Recently? No, years ago, perhaps. But not centuries. There was structure to the soil, layers compacted in a pattern. Reed recognized from crime scenes. A shallow grave. Reed felt cold creep up his throat. "Hunter, we're standing on someone's resting place," Hunter whined, a soft, tremulous sound that broke Reed more than he expected. The dog stepped forward and nudged Reed's arm, pushing him toward the opposite side of the stump. Reed moved, brushing away more leaves, revealing a patch of soil slightly raised, unnatural, deliberate. As Reed leaned closer, a faint metallic glint caught his eye. He dug gently, and a rusted object emerged. A chain link, small enough to be from a necklace or bracelet. He rubbed the dirt away, revealing a faint charm in the shape of a star. Worn, bent, but unmistakably a child's. Reed's breath caught. A memory sliced through him. Lucas, his younger brother, wearing a small star-shaped necklace the day he vanished. Reed hadn't thought about it in years. He blinked hard, pushing the thought back. "Coincidence?" he whispered. "It has to be." But Hunter didn't think so. The dog pawed the ground 3 times hard, deliberate, each strike sending soil scattering. He stopped, lowered his head, and let out a deep, resonant growl. Reed followed his gaze. The soil where Hunter had struck was darker, moist. Something pale peeked through a curve, smooth and thin. Reed's chest tightened. Bone. He staggered back, breath catching in his throat. Hunter moved forward, placing his body between Reed and the stump, not in protection, but in reverence. The dog bowed his head, touching his nose gently to the exposed fragment. A soft whimper escaped him, trembling and fragile. Reed reached for his radio, but his hand shook too violently to press the button. Memories rushed in, Lucas running through these same woods. Their mother standing on the porch, shouting their names as daylight faded. Officers searching for days until hope thinned to threads. Hunter lifted his head suddenly, ears snapping upright. He stepped toward the tree line, nose twitching, tail rigid. Reed followed his gaze. Someone had been here. The thought slammed into him like ice water. The ground wasn't disturbed by animals. The charm wasn't lost by accident. And now, fresh tracks, barely visible impressions in the damp soil, led away from the stump and into the darker part of the forest. Hunter barked once, sharp, determined. Then he took off. "Hunter!" Reed shouted, sprinting after him. Branches whipped Reed's arms as they plunged deeper into the woods. Hunter darted ahead, weaving through trees with fierce purpose. Reed could barely keep him in sight, only tracking him through the flashes of amber fur and the echoes of low, urgent growls. As Reed ran, dread churned inside him. Whoever buried the remains might still be out here, watching, waiting, or worse, returning to cover their tracks. Hunter slid to a halt near a fallen log, nose pressed to its surface. Reed caught up, gasping for breath. The dog sniffed again, then looked up at Reed with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "What is it now?" Reed whispered. Hunter's gaze shifted left, toward a shadowed ravine. His ears twitched, his lips curled back just slightly. Not fear. Recognition. Reed slid down beside him, peering into the ravine. At first he saw nothing. Just twisted roots, dark soil, and tangled brush. But as his eyes adjusted, a shape emerged, a human shape, crouched low, half hidden by branches. Not bones. Not remains. Someone alive. Someone watching them. Hunter growled, deep and primal. As the figure slipped backward into the darkness, Reed's breath hitched as the shadowed figure melted into the ravine like smoke drifting into a deeper darkness. Hunter lunged toward the drop, barking sharply, the sound ricocheting across the hollow. The forest swallowed the echo whole. Reed grabbed Hunter's harness just before the dog leapt, pulling him back with a grunt. "Easy! We can't rush in blind." But Hunter's body was trembling, vibrating with urgency, eyes fixed on the ravine, as if the ground itself whispered the figure's name. Reed scanned the slope again. Nothing moved now. No footsteps, no retreating figure. Just the same sinister stillness, the kind that made even the wind hesitate. Reed's heart pounded, not because the figure had vanished, but because of how they moved. Quiet, controlled, like someone who knew these woods intimately, someone who had been here before. Hunter suddenly turned, pulling Reed back toward the stump, dragging him with surprising strength. Reed stumbled behind him, leaves whipping his legs as the clearing appeared again. The stump loomed at the center, its shadow stretching unnaturally long in the thinning light. Hunter circled it once more, slower this time, as though mapping a memory only he understood. Then he pressed his nose into the earth again, inhaling deeply, searching not for the remains but for something else. Reed crouched beside him, hands sinking into the soft soil. His fingers brushed the small star-shaped charm again, and a shiver lanced through him. He hadn't seen this necklace in 20 years. His brother had worn it the day he disappeared. Every search team, every volunteer, every sleepless night. He had imagined 100 endings, each one worse than the last. But never this. Never here. Hunter pawed the ground again, softer, almost gentle. Reed leaned closer, brushing away more soil, uncovering the curve of the bone, thin, small, a child's. His throat tightened. Lucas. The name escaped him before he could stop it. But as soon as the word left his lips, Hunter jerked upright, spinning sharply toward the far side of the stump. He snarled a deep, guttural sound. Reed had never heard from him. The dog took 3 quick steps backward, then lunged forward, nose pressed against the roots of the stump. Reed followed and froze. Another necklace, buried just beneath the surface. Not a star this time. A heart-shaped pendant, rusted but still intact. And on its back, faint but readable, were initials carved by a careful hand. L.R. Not Lucas Reed, someone else entirely. Hunter whined urgently, then moved to the left of the stump, where the soil rose in small, uneven mounds. Reed wiped the dirt away and found another object, a button from a child's jacket. Then farther down, a barrette. Then a shoelace. Not one set of remains. Multiple. Reed's stomach twisted violently. No. No, no. No. He rose unsteadily as the truth snapped into focus. This wasn't just a grave. It was a dumping ground. And the figure in the ravine wasn't returning to hide one secret. They were returning to hide many. Hunter barked once loud, sharp, turning toward the trail behind them. Reed whipped around and saw it. Footprints. Fresh. Leading not deeper into the forest, but toward town. The man wasn't hiding. He was leaving, heading back to Maple Ridge. Reed scrambled to his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Reed. I need immediate backup at Black Pine. Possible homicide site. Multiple remains discovered. Suspect is..." The words died in his throat. Hunter growled again, but this time the growl trembled with something Reed had never expected. Confusion. The footprints were wrong. They weren't adult-sized. They were smaller, lighter, a child. Reed's pulse stalled. The person watching them wasn't the killer. They were a survivor. He replayed the moment in the ravine, the way the figure crouched low, arms wrapped around themselves, posture defensive, not predatory. The silent retreat, the fear in the way they moved. A child, alive, hiding near the graves of others. Hunter nudged Reed's leg urgently, then sprinted toward the direction the tracks led. Reed chased after him, the realization sinking deeper with every step. The forest was not just hiding the dead, it was hiding the living. Someone had escaped. Someone had survived long enough to watch them uncover the truth. Hunter slid to a stop near a fallen birch. He sniffed the air, ears twitching, then turned sharply left. Reed followed and saw a small scrap of fabric snagged on a branch. Pink, torn, stained with dirt. A child's shirt, Hunter whimpered, lowering his head to the fabric, breathing it in. Then he looked up at Reed, eyes wide, pleading, as if urging him to understand what he already knew. The killer wasn't gone. The killer lived in Maple Ridge. And the child, the one who watched them from the ravine, was running home. Reed's blood went cold. The case wasn't about the past anymore. It was happening now. Hunter barked once, sharp and immediate, then took off at full speed. Reed sprinted behind him, realizing with terrifying clarity, the forest wasn't the crime scene. It was just the beginning. Hunter tore through the forest with a speed Reed had never seen, not even during searches for missing hikers or chases after fleeing suspects. This was different. Personal, urgent. Leaves exploded beneath his paws as he sprinted across uneven ground, leaping over fallen logs, weaving through jagged roots with the precision of a creature who understood he was running out of time. Reed fought to keep up, breath burning in his chest, branches slashing at his shoulders as he charged after his partner. "Hunter, slow down." But the dog didn't listen, couldn't listen. Something ahead was pulling him like gravity, like instinct, like destiny. Reed pushed harder, refusing to lose sight of the amber blur darting between the trees. The forest began to thin. Through the branches, the faint outline of Maple Ridge appeared, small houses, narrow streets, and the distant glow of porch lights beginning to flicker on as dusk settled over the town. Reed's pulse hammered. If the child had run this way, they were heading straight into danger. The killer wasn't in the woods. The killer was here, hiding among neighbors and friends, the kind of person who waved from driveways and nodded politely in grocery stores. Hunter skidded to a halt at the tree line, nose pressed to the ground. Reed stumbled to his side, hands on his knees as he gasped for air. Where now, buddy?" Hunter didn't answer. He lifted his head, nostrils flaring, scanning the air with frantic determination. Then he bolted toward a narrow trail that wound between two old houses on the town's outskirts. The houses were dark, silent, windows clouded with dust. They looked abandoned, forgotten yet. Reed's instincts twisted violently as Hunter dashed between them. Reed followed, and as he rounded the back of one house, he saw it. A small shoe print in the mud. Fresh. Hunter barked sharply, pawing at the worn wooden steps leading to a cellar door. Reed's stomach lurched. The door was slightly open. Hunter shoved his nose into the gap and let out a low, trembling whine. Reed drew his flashlight and his gun. "Hunter, stay close." But Hunter shoved the door open with his shoulder and descended into the cellar before Reed could stop him. Reed cursed under his breath and followed, beams of the flashlight slicing through the darkness. The air inside was damp, heavy with the scent of mold and something far more unsettling, fear. Reed stepped cautiously, sweeping the light across the room. Dust floated in the air like drifting ash. Old shelves lined the walls, cluttered with rusted tools, broken jars, and scraps of metal. But at the far end of the room, illuminated by a thin shaft of moonlight filtering through a tiny window, was a child. A girl no older than 8 or 9, crouched against the wall. Her hair was tangled, face smeared with dirt, knees scraped raw. She flinched as Reed approached, but her eyes were locked onto Hunter, wide and trembling. Hunter lowered himself to the ground, crawling toward her with slow, gentle movements. His tail wagged cautiously. His ears softened. His entire body shifted from urgency to tenderness. The girl whispered, hoarse and terrified, "He's coming back." Reed knelt beside her. Who did this to you?" But she shook her head violently, pressing her hands over her ears as if the name itself might drag the monster back into the cellar. Hunter nudged her hand, nose brushing her knuckles, grounding her. Reed took a slow breath. "You're safe now, I promise." But Hunter suddenly stiffened, ears snapping upright, body turning toward the stairs. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Reed's blood froze. Someone else was in the house. He grabbed the girl gently. "Stay behind me." Hunter moved forward, positioning himself between Reed and the stairs, muscles coiled, ready to strike. Reed switched off his flashlight, plunging the room into a deeper shadow. The cellar door creaked open wider. A silhouette appeared at the top of the stairs, tall, broad, descending one step at a time. "Who's down there?" a voice called out. "Calm. Too calm." Hunter growled a low, primal warning that reverberated through the cellar like thunder rolling beneath the earth. Reed raised his weapon. "Police! Stay where you are!" The man paused mid-step. Reed could feel him smiling in the darkness. "So you found my stump," the man said lightly. Hunter always was too smart for his own good. Reed's heart lurched violently. He knew that voice. He had grown up hearing it across backyard fences and neighborhood gatherings. Mr. Crowley, the retired park ranger, the man who had volunteered to search for Lucas 20 years ago, the man who had brought comfort to Reed's mother when she could no longer stand, the man who lived alone near the woods, a house away from the stump. He stepped fully into view, the dim moonlight revealing a face carved with lines of age and something colder. "You never should have come back here, Daniel." He clicked his tongue. "And you brought Hunter with you. He always hated me. Dogs see truth the way people refuse to." Hunter lunged with a snarl, but Reed held him back. "Don't move, Crowley. It's over." Crowley laughed softly. "Over? Daniel, my boy, it's barely begun. That child shouldn't have run. She knows the rules." Reed fired a warning shot into the ceiling. "Step away from the stairs." But Crowley charged. Hunter exploded forward, slipping from Reed's grip. The dog slammed into Crowley with a bone-rattling force, knocking him backward into the wall. Crowley swung a rusted wrench, grazing Hunter's side. Hunter yelped but didn't retreat. He lunged again, jaws clamping onto Crowley's wrist, tearing the weapon from his grasp. "Hunter, down!" Reed shouted. Hunter released instantly, dropping to the ground as Reed tackled Crowley, slamming him face first into the cellar floor. Crowley thrashed, spitting curses, but Reed cuffed him swiftly, pressing a knee into his back. "You took them?" Reed growled. "All those kids. You took them." Crowley's laughter slithered through the darkness. "Not all of them." Reed froze. Hunter growled, inching closer to the girl. She trembled, hugging herself tightly. Reed looked at her, asking the question with his eyes. She nodded quickly. "There's more," she whispered. "He kept them somewhere else." Reed exhaled, vision blurring with rage. The room spun around him, but Hunter barked sharply, grounding him again. Reed met his partner's eyes. Hunter nudged the girl gently, guiding her forward. They weren't done. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning. Backup sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Crowley hissed through his teeth. "You'll never find the others in time." Reed tightened the cuffs and stood. "Hunter will." And Hunter, still breathing hard, still bleeding slightly from Crowley's blow, lifted his head proudly. His ears turned toward the far wall of the cellar, toward a draft of cold air seeping through a hidden gap. A tunnel. A way out. A way deeper. Hunter barked once sharp, determined. He was ready to lead again. By the time backup arrived, the cellar had transformed from a chamber of terror into a frantic rescue operation. Officers swarmed the house, while paramedics wrapped the trembling girl in blankets, guiding her gently into the ambulance's warm light. Reed stood nearby, mud on his knees, blood on his sleeves, adrenaline slowly melting into exhaustion. But Hunter stood beside him, steady, vigilant, eyes locked on the tunnel entrance, as if refusing to rest until every secret had surfaced. An evidence team moved into the cellar, widening the gap along the far wall. What began as a narrow crack soon revealed a hidden corridor, carved crudely into the earth. Air drifted from it, stale, cold, and tinged with something metallic. Reed didn't need confirmation to know the truth. Crowley had used the tunnel for years, moving unseen between forest and town, taking children, burying some, hiding others, manipulating the search parties he himself had volunteered for. Every case that had gone cold in Maple Ridge had passed through his hands. And Hunter had sensed it the moment they stepped into the woods. Reed's chest tightened as he crouched beside his partner, stroking the fur along Hunter's shoulders. "You saved her," he whispered. "You saved all of them." Hunter leaned into him, eyes softening, though the tremor in his muscles betrayed how deeply the day had scarred him. Reed exhaled, brushing away a smear of dirt from Hunter's snout. "I won't forget this, ever." Minutes later, officers emerged from the tunnel carrying survivors' 3 children, pale and weak but alive. Each one flinched at the sight of uniforms, until they saw Hunter. The dog approached quietly, lowering himself to the ground, tail wagging gently. One child reached out hesitant at first, then buried their face into Hunter's fur, sobbing into the warmth they thought they would never feel again. Reed watched the scene, throat tightening. The world could be cruel in ways he had never imagined. but Hunter had carved a path through darkness that even he hadn't been able to find. As the ambulances pulled away, Reed turned toward the woods. Beyond the treetops, the sky was fading into the deep blue of night. The forest, once a grave of secrets, now hummed with the footsteps of investigators, lights flickering like scattered stars across the ground. The old stump remained at its center, no longer a symbol of loss, but the beginning of truth. Reed approached it slowly. He knelt, touching the soil where the first bone had surfaced. The star-shaped charm lay in an evidence bag beside him, glinting faintly, a relic of someone's life. Someone's story. Maybe not Lucas's. Maybe not the answer Reed had feared or hoped he would find. But Hunter nudged his shoulder, as if telling him that not every wound finds its closure in the way we expect. Some heal in the act of saving others, in uncovering the truth, in fighting for those who still have a chance. Reed rose to his feet. Come on, partner. Let's go home. Hunter took one last look at the stump. One last inhale, deep and deliberate, honoring the lives buried below. Then he turned, walking beside Reed as they headed down the trail. The sirens faded, the lights dimmed, but the forest no longer felt cold. The girl rescued that night would later tell investigators that she'd heard a dog barking in her dreams, guiding her, urging her to hold on. Others would say Hunter could sense souls the way most dogs sense footsteps. Reed didn't argue. He knew better. Hunter didn't just find bodies. He found truth. And sometimes, truth was the only thing powerful enough to bring the living back from the edge. As they emerged from the woods, Reed looked down at his partner. You ready for what comes next? Hunter barked softly, tail sweeping once across the ground. A promise. A beginning. And somewhere out there, beyond the quiet streets of Maple Ridge, new stories waited in the shadows, stories only Hunter would know how to uncover. Before the video ends, tell me this. Do you believe dogs can sense what humans cannot?